Hi, and welcome to another Papetti Math YouTube video. Now, this YouTube video is going to be designed to answer question number 3, exercise number 3, in lesson 6 of chapter 10. Chapter 10 is all about the algebra of quadratics. Now, in this lesson specifically, we are looking at quadratic word problems, and our word problem that we have in front of us here is the product of two consecutive positive integers is 506. What is the sum of the integers? So just because it's two sentences doesn't mean that there's a lot involved in this problem, because there is going to be a lot involved. So let's start off by looking at keyword is product. So we're going to have to multiply something. Then we have consecutive positive integers. So if we want consecutive numbers, we're going to have let x equal our first consecutive integer. Okay, and what would be the next number? Well, let's think about other numbers. We have any number, 12. How do you get to the next number? Oh, 13. And 33. What's the next number? 34. And 61. The next number would be 62. So for all of these numbers, what operation that's exactly the same would get you from one to the next? Well, let's see. What if we added 1 to each of these numbers? So since we add 1 to get to our next consecutive integer, we're going to add 1 to x to get to our next consecutive integer. So we're going to let x plus 1 equal our second consecutive integer. Now that we know that, we're going to set up our equation. The product of x and x plus 1 is going to be 506. So the product is to multiply x times x plus 1, and it's going to equal 506. So now we're going to distribute the x to the x plus 1. We're going to get x squared plus x equals 506. And again, we want to make this equation equal 0 before we begin to do anything. Now that it's in standard form as x squared plus x minus 506 is equal to 0, we're ready to solve it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at how we could go about solving that. And yes, factoring is a doable method, but off the top of my head, I don't know what two numbers are going to factor to 506 and combine to get a 1. So I'm going to go with my method of completing the square on this one. And even though my b term is odd, I think that we'll be able to complete the square with this one. So let's take a look. We're going to have x squared plus x minus 506 is equal to 0. And my first step in completing the square is to move the c term to the other side of the equal sign. So right now I have x squared plus x. These cancel out, but I leave a space there, and I make it equal 506. Now I left that space because my next step is to take my b term, which is a 1, divided by 2 is 0.5, and square it so I get 0.25, or 1/4, however you want to look at it. So you want to add that value to both sides of your equation to keep it equal. So I'm going to add 0.25 to both sides. Now, this allows me to factor the left as a perfect square trinomial. And remember, your hint for factoring when you have a decimal is just divide your b term by 2, and that's what goes in this blank space right here. So 1 divided by 2 is 1/2, or 0.5. And on this side, it's going to equal 506.25. Okay, so now it looks like we're going to need to get our calculators out, because now we're going to be taking square roots of decimals. Let's see how this works out. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. And by doing that, on our left side, we will be left with just x plus 0.5, because the square root will cancel out the square. And then what is our square root of 506.25? And if you put that in your calculator, you will get 22.5. But remember that square roots have both a positive and a negative solution. So our final step to get our answer is going to be to subtract the 0.5 from both sides to get x by itself. And we're going to be left with negative 0.5 plus or minus 22.5. Now again, we have two possible solutions here. We have negative 0.5 plus 22.5, and that will give us a solution of 22. And we have negative 0.5 minus 22.5, and that will give us a solution of negative 23. So of these two solutions, we need to go back and see what the question is asking. Well, first of all, we have to keep in mind that it wanted only positive integers, so we're going to reject that negative 23, and 22 is what we're going to work with. So let's go up over here. If our first consecutive integer was 22, that means our next consecutive integer is going to be 22 plus 1, or 23. Finally, it says, what's the sum of these integers? So once we know that the integers are 22 and 23, we just want to add those two up. And we're going to get 45. So our answer here is 45 is the sum of the integers. If this video helped explain this question and helped you understand what was going on, please give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, let me know what I could have done better in the comments. Thanks. You ready to go on to exercise number 4? Go ahead and click that link.